everyone. Welcome to the Topless Creek Instagram Live conversation. I'm your host, proprietor Jason Haas. My guest this week is somebody who I'm super excited for you all to meet. It is Kelly Cornett, who is a podcaster, event host, creator, influencer, super influential in the Atlanta wine community, and the creator of the Sommlympics, that I think is a really fun way of reimagining the sommelier world and the sommelier competition. So I can't wait for you to meet Kelly. But while we wait for people to join, as I always do, I wanted to share a few pictures as to what's going on here at the vineyard. It is probably no surprise to any of you who've been following what's going on in California that it's been warm, like June warm here in March. And so that has meant that unlike a lot of years where things are still dormant, they are nowhere close to dormant. This is Grgich up at the top of our tallest hill, so it is way out. You're already seeing flower clusters. We are 3 or 4 weeks ahead of normal. A few other pictures. So this is looking up a hillside of Grgich, sort of at the middle of a big hill. Even varieties that are down towards the bottom and late sprouting varieties, so this is Roussan, which is typically not sprouting until the end of April, is already budding out. So it is not a year where we can afford a frost. Luckily, it has been warm since we got to bud break. It does look like that might change next week. We do have a couple of storms coming through, and it is in the aftermath of those storms that we worry about it freezing. So we are out in the vineyard trying to turn all of the growth into soil, or bring it down to soil level to allow the cold air to drain. So got a picture of one of our mowers going through. We're going to follow this up with a spader to help incorporate that green matter into the soil. You can see I have a picture of like a row where we have mowed next to a row where we haven't mowed, and you can see in that row where we have not mowed, the grasses are up at about cordon level. And this is Counoise. Counoise is also a late sprouting grape, and that Counoise is out several inches. So anyway, that's the take-home message, if you have one, is that we are way ahead of normal. We are also trying to get the sheep in one last rotation through the latest sprouting block, which is the Mourvedre that we have behind our biggest hill. But that's probably going to end in the next week. So they're going to go out and do their work in the forests, and we'll turn our attention to the growing season. Okay, so that is what is going on here at Topless. I will now invite Kelly to join, and can't wait to talk to her. So send the request through now. Just sent it through, and hopefully this all works as smoothly as it did in the test that we did on Monday. Oh man, magic.
Yay! Can you hear me?
I can hear you, I can see you clearly. Awesome. Technology is amazing when it works.
Well, you made us practice, which is fantastic. So we were hopeful that this would go well, right? That's why we practice, I guess. Hopefully.
That is why we practice. Awesome. So I don't know if you were on. I gave a super quick introduction to you when I first started the live, and basically that you are podcaster, founder of Sommlympics, event organizer, speaker, lots of different hats. I would love to start by asking you to share a little bit of your path into wine. Was wine something that was on your family table growing up? Was it something you always knew you were interested in, or did you come to it a little later?
Oh, it was always around growing up. This is all my dad's fault. And if he's listening to this eventually, he'll be like, yeah, pretty much he'll claim that. I was in a wine-loving family, but I grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So not in wine country, but my dad, again, whose fault all of this is, he was in technology business and really was in this consulting role. And early on, he saw the magic, I guess. I say power, but like the magical power of wine in his meetings and with his clients. And so he in like the 80s was the guy that picked out the wines at dinner. He was the guy that did all of the consulting client facing role stuff and brought wine into it. So I was seeing that all the time, and we'd travel out to Napa a lot growing up. He had clients out there. So I feel really, I know it's a privilege that I saw it so early. I saw it so early. But yeah, I've always loved wine because of the family and friends around it. Absolutely.
Awesome. So your first job in wine, if I remember right, was in Virginia wine country.
Well, that is where I would say like officially official, but
Okay.
side note that isn't probably on the internet anywhere until now. My first ever wine job was a package store in Minneapolis, Minnesota,
Uh-huh.
and I was working the like night shift. I'd come back from college and I was doing like stocking and mopping the floors.
Okay.
Like selling lottery tickets. I was working in a package store, and the beautiful thing is when I would go through and do all the facing and making sure the bottles were all lined up, I was looking at wines and like looking at wine producers. So, 18, 19, I was like, oh, these are all places that my dad has been to or talked about. And so yeah, so thank you, package store, for that. And then yeah, eventually I found myself working at a winery in Virginia in the Shenandoah Valley. And that's where I would say like officially learned more of the industry depth. But yeah, that's probably where it all began.
Do you have a first wine that you remember, like sort of an aha wine that for you, like was your own experience rather than sort of a reflection of your family's?
That's so funny. I think about this because I love when I ask people that and they immediately have this bottle. Like you can see them see it
Right.
in their head. I honestly, Jason, I don't know if I have that moment. I don't think I have that moment. There are there's a combination of moments, I would say, and they all kind of circle around California wine. I will say that. So there is a very significant moment. It wasn't my first wine, but I think it was like, whoa, this is bigger than just a bottle on my table.
Yep.
And that barrel tasting of Chardonnay at Grgich Hills.
Yeah.
I do remember that. And I had never had wine from a barrel before. And I was
Yep.
like, oh, tell me more about this, right? There's like a rainbow outside on the vineyard. And I'm like, oh, wow. So that for sure. And then there was a bottle that I think showed me how complex wine could be. And that was, gosh, I don't remember exactly the vintage. It was one of the first vintages of Continuum. And my dad had that at a dinner party. So Napa, back to California. That's literally where I learned what wine could be. I think that's where it all started.
Cool. Yeah, if it makes you feel any better, I also do not have like a wine that like opened up my eyes to wine. I do have the first wine that I remember tasting and saying, "Ooh, I can understand what people are saying about these flavors," and that was a an Alsatian Gewürztraminer, which is, I
Ooh.
mean, it's so exotic and floral and fruity, and it was a little bit sweet, and I don't know, I was probably in my mid-teens at that point, and it was a producer whose wines my dad had imported, and like I was used to my parents bringing bottles up from the cellar and trying to like blind taste each other on it and ask them to guess. And I would always look at them and be like, I will never be able to do that. I have no idea how you're doing this. I don't understand any of these things that you're saying you taste. And then I remember tasting that wine and being like, wait, I taste those things that you say that you taste. And that was
And
pretty.
you'll remember, like you'll remember those things. Yeah, that's awesome. That's a very aromatic wine to
Yeah.
have locked in your memory right there. That makes sense.
Okay, can you talk a little bit about what the Virginia, like, I'm guessing a lot of the people who are watching, honestly, whether they're watching and they know you from Atlanta or whether they're watching and they know us from California, might not know Virginia wine country that well. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like when you were working there and maybe a little bit about how it's evolved since then?
I will always talk about Virginia wine. Like, how long do we have? Do we have the whole? I do. I think it's so funny. There are people that still think I have family in Virginia or that I like live there part of it because I talk about it all the time, Jason. It's imprinted in me as such a special place, and I don't even know the depth of everything that's happening there right now because I was working at the winery in 2011 was my first year there. So, I mean, it's a long time ago. So things have changed, but when I started, it was such an exciting time. And I would say that through line is still there now because I was at a winery at the time. We were making like 3,500 cases in the Shenandoah Valley. So 2 hours outside of DC. And what I knew from being there, we had a staff of like 12 or 13. It was very small, but the owners lived on property. The winemaker was from South Africa, and he wanted to share everything possible with me. He wanted me to be part of every single step of production. So that was incredible. And then what I learned is on my off days, I was like driving distance from all these amazing other wineries. So just little old me in my 20s, I on my like off days during the week, I would drive around the state. I had a binder notebook thing. I don't know where that is. I wish I could find it because it'd be chock full of memories. But I just started taking notes. I started meeting with as many people as I could because what I also realized in a tasting room like that in Shenandoah Valley, people would come there and then they'd say, "Where else can I go, Kelly? Like, this was an amazing experience. Where do I go?" So I was a tour guide back then, and I think at the time when I started, maybe 150-ish wineries. Now I know there's like almost 300 or something like that. So it was overwhelming to me in an exciting way of how many places people could go and meet the people. Like a lot of times the winemakers were behind the counter. And I think that's still the case. I think that's still, I mean, you can go there and have that kind of personal experience. But then also like the diversity of the grapes that were grown in the different regions. So where I was, our main stars were Petit Verdot, Cabernet Franc. We weren't even growing like Viognier, which a lot of people knew. So I would drive around the state to go find, oh, what are these other grapes? Petit Manseng, Viognier. Like we don't grow those. So yeah, it was a very exciting time. And I'm still pumped for people to discover it. It's so fun to hear people like, oh, it's my first time here. I'm like, welcome. Let's go. Let's
Yep.
go.
Shout out. We, as you know, because we talked about this at the symposium, we are partners through the Wine Atlas Collective group with Blenheim Vineyards in Virginia, in Charlottesville. So, shout out anybody who is thinking of visiting Virginia wine country and is a member at Tablas Creek. Like, if you go there, you will be treated as a wine club member. That's the way the Wine Atlas Collective works. So
You absolutely will. You'll get to meet cool people. You'll probably hear some Dave Matthews music playing in the tasting room, and you'll have a fantastic time and drink some really killer. My favorite there, I love their Viognier, but I also really love the Blenheim Sauvignon Blanc, and that is my favorite tailgate wine, or like pre-concert wine. It's wonderful. So Blenheim Sauv Blanc, outdoor concert season all day.
okay. How did you come to be based in Atlanta?
That is a fun other life story. Not related to wine directly, but I went to school in Virginia and I studied exercise science. So I have my master's degree in exercise physiology. And when I graduated, I actually wanted to do nothing related to it. I just needed a break. So that's why I started working at the winery. I just like wanted to use a different part of my brain, creativity, I don't know, learn other skills too. So I was working at the winery, and then my colleagues from my life in exercise physiology were like, hey, there's this job down here in Atlanta in public health, and you would be perfect for it. So I moved to Atlanta for a job in public health. But that, and it was hard because I remember the day I had to tell the winery that I was leaving, and I said, but it has nothing to do with my decreased love of wine, I promise. So I moved to Atlanta, but I also at the time, it was really exciting, similar kind of just feeling a good energy about people discovering wine, wanting to learn more about wine. There were a lot more independently owned wine shops popping up and education coming to Atlanta. So I realized from my winery background that I could partner with these venues and start helping them with educational programming, help them with events and marketing. So I started doing that like 2016, 2017, just honestly for free. I would do it for fun. And my friends were really mad about that because they were like, you should probably make that a business, Kelly. But I was just doing it because I wanted people to I wanted people to find wine.
Yep.
So I did that in Atlanta too.
And is that sort of what grew into A Cork in the Road? Is that was that sort of initially informal work, helping put on events, and
Absolutely.
things don't stay quite so informal forever. So, can you talk about that process of turning it into a business?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I came from public health. I came from academia. I was in grad school. Like I did not have a business background. I don't I still I still struggle with, that, drive entrepreneurship because I just a lot of things I like to give for free. It's the public health in me. I just want people to have access and like come be part of this. Oh, wait, that costs something. Oh yeah. So I'm not always with that mindset, but I'm learning because what I've found is that I can do more things since I've created an official
Right.
business from the process. So yes, I was doing partnerships and event design and not ever buying wine directly and doing kind of the sales of it, but I would work with wine buyers and distributors. And so then I formed that into the LLC business officially. That was in 2019 or 18, something like that. So a couple of years after I was doing things for free.
Right. Good. It's a positive development. You should be paid
I'm
for good
learning.
work.
Thanks.
Um, okay, so at what point did you decide to launch your podcast? And I would love, as like sort of a follow-up question that I'll ask even before you've answered the previous one, like what is it about podcasting that you have found like intriguing and fun enough that you're now on what, episode 173?
You're so good. That was as of today. I just posted like you looked at that or something. I don't know. Yeah, 173 as of today. Yes. Yes. But I never thought that I would get there. And I'm starting to sound like I don't plan anything. I promise I do have goals and I do have sounds I'm not just saying everything just happens. But I did start the podcast kind of as a second idea because I was helping with a radio show. It was like a local neighborhood radio show here in Atlanta. Well, in Decatur, actually. Decatur, it wasn't even Atlanta proper. And I decided that I was helping them kind of report on wine and report on culinary stuff happening. And my husband, who is more of a podcast listener than I ever was, he was like, "Hey, you're recording these interviews. Why don't you put them on a podcast platform too? Like you're doing it for the radio, so like
Right.
just do it." And I knew nothing about podcasting. I had to look up like what an RSS feed was. I had no idea what that meant, but my husband encouraged me. And so I did that. And then it was the first podcast episode I posted. I just looked today because I thought you might ask me about this, was July 2019 was the first episode. So then, since then, we've rolled right into the pandemic and we rolled into
Right.
COVID. What I realized there was what I was doing was helping people feel connected when we couldn't be together. So in a strange way, the pandemic fueled the purpose behind the podcast even more than it originally was, just showcasing people that are behind the wine roles and the people you might see at wine shops, at restaurants. It became a connectivity device for me and for a lot of people of that conversation that we just wanted to have about wine. So we did that. It really took off during like 2020. That's when I was very consistent about it. I was scheduling seasons of episodes and I was like, okay, we're doing this. See, I do plan. That was my plan. I did have, I had an agenda for that. So it's, yes, 173 episodes later, kind of by mistake, what I still find as the purpose and the power of the podcast is the longevity of the conversations, the versatility of the conversations, and it's accessible. It's accessible all around the world. I think that that's really neat about wine because a lot of us love that when we're chatting about wine, we're sharing wine. It's this global perspective that's in front of us. And then now these conversations you can listen to it and talk about it with your friends or family or people in France or Australia. I have, for some reason, a lot of listeners from Ireland. I don't know. Sure.
Great.
Like, great. So it's a connectivity device these days.
And I mean, I think we've all, I mean, any successful business or entity, like it had to find new ways of communicating with people, or at least reprioritize which ones they spent their time in during COVID. Because I mean, this Instagram Live conversation series that started the first weeks of the COVID lockdown because we had lost all of our ways of communicating with people. Like our tasting room was closed, we weren't doing events, there were no festivals, there were no wine dinners, there were no restaurants. Like all of those things had disappeared almost overnight, and so. Same thing. If you'd asked me when I did my first conversation, which was with Neil, our winemaker, so that someone could tell the story of what was going on at the winery, like if this would still be going 6 years later, I would have been like, yeah, no way. So.
Oh my gosh. And you, I will, to your credit, this is crazy to be on the other side of things. I'm very impressed with your longevity in a live situation. I also am very not used to being the one being asked the questions. So kudos to you, because planning, and you do a lot of research of your guests. I've seen you bring in lots of different types of people from different backgrounds in wine. But again, so that makes so much sense that you're all about the conversation too, Jason. And so thanks for the connect. We wanted to be connected through wine, so we found other means of communication to do so. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Okay, I'm not going to ask you to pick a favorite episode because I'm sure that's impossible. But I'm wondering, if people have not listened to the podcast, is there one or two that you would recommend that people start with to get a sense of the way that you do things, or ones that you are particularly proud of?
Wow. I have never thought about that. That is, now I understand how hard it is when I have people on the show and I ask them questions that they don't know are coming. Sorry to everybody. Now I get it. That's really hard. That's why you want to know the questions in advance. I get it. When you say that, what lit up in my mind were probably more of the recent episodes in the past year or two, only because they are unique to what I'm able to do now, which is live audience shows.
Oh, cool.
So that's like, my brain goes to that because it's what I do now. It's not how I started. It all was on Zoom. It was all electronic, but now we have done a lot lately. And I say we, because it's a collective. It's the best group project I've ever been part of, this podcast. But we'll have people visiting, and then I'll invite other industry people. We do group conversations. I'll have people come up to the mic intermittently, and they ask questions too. So these conversations, probably one that I think is really fun, and I wouldn't say it's indicative of what I do because it was kind of a one-off, but it's very fun. We did a whole panel discussion recently where we had a chef who cooks this incredible one-product macaroni and cheese. So he makes this macaroni and cheese, kind of like to go, freezer ready, whatever. He sells at farmers markets around Atlanta. Really cool story about him. So we had him there. And then I had 5 sommeliers from Atlanta and a panel of really culinary inclined people that were judging their wine pairings. So it was one dish, and then all the somms talked about why they paired that. So that was live. And that was so fun, and it was delightful because we got to eat and drink during that one. So it's really good. But that was it was before the holidays. It was talking about the versatility of macaroni and cheese, the versatility of wine pairing, and why you might pick a different beverage choice. And so it was to inspire holiday wine pairings. That one's fun.
That sounds super fun. Okay, that's probably a good segue into my question about the creation of Sommlympics, which you did in 2023. It feels like that idea of creating something that didn't. I think there's something on your website that says like you wanted a sommelier competition that didn't feel like a final exam. And it sounds like maybe that live panel discussion judging piece that feels very in keeping with what Sommlympics is. So I'm hoping you'll talk a little bit about what the impetus was behind creating it and what it's like now.
I'm a very competitive person, but that's only because I played a lot of sports and I'm like repping my sports team here. It's March Madness. I had to go green. But yes, I played sports growing up, so I think a lot of what I do now in wine, it's kind of just goes along with having those skills and having some sort of competitive atmosphere. But for yourself, kind of pushing yourself to the next level. I think a lot of people in the wine industry that go through certifications, you're very driven to outdo yourself and to like do things for meeting your goals. So it goes along with that. But yeah, the Sommlympics was, oh gosh, it started off, and this goes along with my background in exercise science, but my friend Chelsea Young, she's here in Atlanta. She is the lead educator, owner of a school called the Enophile Institute. We were just hanging out one day and we were talking about, wouldn't it be cool if we did like a field day? Back when you had like you'd run track, and it was like a field day for SOMs. That was the kind of our original idea, and we were laughing about what the events might be, and it was silly. And we were thinking like, oh, there'd be like a chugging contest. No, like we were joking about each of the individual events. Well, it happened a little less of a field day and more organized in structure, but we decided to model it as a team event. A lot of the competitions that are out there in the wine industry for sommeliers, for professionals, it's a lot of individual. And we thought it'd be cool to offer a team aspect. And so we structured it similarly to, the best I can describe it is gymnastics at the Olympics. So you have your team, but then you have your individual competitors in each of the events. So yeah, Sommlympics is a team of 3, and it's based on the traditional kind of quartermasters topics of assign one of your team members to be the specialist in those. But you get individually a competition, but then you also get team scores. So we did that the first year, and it was such a grassroots, homegrown situation, but we had so much fun. We gave prizes, we gave medals, people had a great time. We had spectators. I mean, it started off pretty cool. So we were like, okay, we'll do it again. And then we did it again. We're probably going to do it again. So yeah, it's taking off.
I love the idea of doing it with spectators, because that does bring sort of an energy to anything. Because I mean, it makes it, first of all, a performance. So you are having to communicate what you're doing in a different way than if you're just like writing down answers on a piece of paper. But it sounds really, really fun.
It's super interactive, and I'm glad you said that, because my favorite part, so this year, it was 2 years at the same location at the Enophile Institute here in Smyrna, Georgia. Then we kind of went from 0 to 60. I don't know. They just grow up so fast. I don't know what happened. We were at this giant hotel this year. So it went from like 40 spectators to 100 this year. We had capacity for more than that, up to 150, I think we could have had, but it was wild. So we grew up, but the spectators this year we called it the third vintage, because wine, third vintage or Sommlympics, I was walking around talking with a lot of our guests, and that was the thing they brought up, was just how much they were learning themselves from seeing these skills being demonstrated. The theory is a Jeopardy style, classic Jeopardy style, so that's very trivia based, but we also throw some surprise blind tastings in there and that kind of thing. The service, super interactive for seeing these skills that people that go to fine dining or they've seen in restaurants but never really had the chance to interact with. Why are you doing it that way? Why are you putting the bottle in this certain way? Why are you using that tool? They got to ask these questions of these, standardized skills that the sommeliers have to use. So that was, yeah, the interactive part. People told me they learned so much from being a spectator. They also got to drink some really good wines as a spectator. I think that helped. We had the really neat part about Sommlympics this year. Again, I think I like group projects, because it really was a group effort of a lot of producers sending their wines to Atlanta. They all had to be in distribution in Atlanta, but so registered through the state, but it could have been wines of, that they don't usually send to Atlanta, or usually. It was just spectacular, just craft wine and people. I felt like we'd look at the line of the bottles of the wines that we were able to serve, and it was all the people involved from afar that were supporting the effort. We did have Topless Creek. We had one of your wines. It was I always say it wrong, the Patalin Rouge?
Yeah, no, that was good. You got it right.
Okay.
Awesome. It was funny because I was telling my wife, Megan, this morning that I was talking with the woman who created Sommlympics, and she's like, "Oh, I can't. I want to know what the events are." She was imagining like that famous video of Katie Ledecky swimming with a glass of milk on her head. She was like, "Okay, do Somms? Ooh, what would the athletic events have to be?" So you have an idea now for your next one.
Oh, okay, yeah, because we also had one of the competitors this year. He sent us a video. I'm trying to remember what he used. Oh, he sabered a champagne bottle with his foot.
Oh,
So I don't remember how. And I was like, okay, we are not adding. That seems a little too liability. That might be dangerous. But sure, Sam's practice. We can add in some more physicality to these challenges. I think we can find a way to do that. Right now, it's very intellectual and palate driven, but who knows?
you make
Possibility.
the change from Jeopardy as your model to like America's Got Talent.
Yes, there you go. There you go. Make it like a sideshow. Yeah. Give us your best talent show. Oh
So
man.
we got a question. We got
Don't
a question
challenge us.
come in on the a question on the chat saying, "Are there any videos of the Sommlympics on YouTube? Is there a way that people can watch it?"
Not on YouTube. That's really interesting. We have a lot of Instagram like little story bites that people took, and we had some photographers that took videos for us, but nothing full length on YouTube yet. But we are working on that because that's exactly the type of thing we get is what does it actually look like? And so now, I mean, only in the third year, but we have a lot of interest from people, from media, from different sponsors. And so that is the next goal is to be able to share out. And YouTube scares me. It shouldn't scare me, but I don't know. We'll figure that out. We'll figure out the YouTube platform. We'll get there.
Yeah, we had to figure it out. It's not that hard. We've done a lot of like we do these virtual pickup parties that we started doing during COVID that we broadcast on Facebook Live and YouTube Live, and then it gets archived and goes onto your feeds in both places. It's pretty straightforward actually. I'm happy to offline if you want I'll hook you up with our director of marketing who did it for us.
Sounds good. It sounds like I can be taken care of on the YouTube platform. Thank you so much. Well, I'm not afraid to try new things. So thank you, Jason.
Okay, so is there anything new you're working on? Like you do so many different pieces, and every time I've talked to you, I'm always amazed at the number of ideas that come out in even a quick conversation. Like, is there anything new that you're working on that you can share?
That I'm able to share. Right now, it's a lot of planning for more live podcasts, and it seems like it would just have the people there, set the mic up, and go. But there's actually a lot of coordination that happens because
Right.
I'm really intentional about the types of shows I'm putting out right now. A lot of people ask, how do you find people for it? And it's almost now more about I come up with something I want to talk about, and then I seek out the person to talk to
Yeah.
me about. So there's a lot of, I don't know, strategy behind the scenes, but there's some pretty cool live episodes coming up. I'll tease one because it's not the competition that I helped create, but it's a competition that has been going on in Atlanta for 15 years, and it's a blind tasting competition called Somm Smackdown. And it's been hosted, yeah, we just did the 15th year of it. And I had a guest that was at the most recent competition for that email me after and say, I go to all these blind tasting things and I'm so fascinated by the skill. Can you do an episode where people talk about how to learn to do that? How do you
Cool.
learn the process behind it? So that was the spark. We're going to talk about a lot more than just that, but I've invited some of the competitors from past years of this blind tasting competition. So that'll be a panel discussion coming up. I'm also going on a few travels coming up that I hope to figure out some cool way to capture, maybe YouTube, I don't know. But they're going out to California for the Cabernet Academy. Have you
Okay.
heard of this before? It's in Alexander Valley, so it's a Cabernet focused experience for professionals. And then I can say because I think Brian was on here. I'm going out with Winery 16600 to Walla Walla for the Blood of Gods magazine merrymaking.
Oh, cool.
Have
Yeah,
you ever been there?
We'll be there. I won't be there, but Austin Collins, our director of vineyard operations, is going to be there pouring Tabla Streak. So you'll see him there.
Okay, perfect. That I gotta somehow figure out a cool way to capture. I always think what I'm always working on is communication methods and storytelling, but purposeful storytelling. So much that happens in wine. We said we both started doing our communications because we like to connect through these different platforms. So I'm always thinking about how to share, how to communicate, articulate what these experiences are. And then, that's where my brain always is. So anything I'm doing, anything I'm seeing, observing, I'm always thinking about how to story tell that, how to package
Cool.
it. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. I cannot believe that it has been half an hour, but it has been half an hour already. And I do try to keep these to half an hour. I appreciate you taking a chunk out of your Wednesday afternoon to tell your story. But before we go, how do people learn more about you or learn more about A Cork in the Road or find out where you're going to be or anything else? How do people connect?
Thank you so much for your time. I'm thinking it's more of an it's evening. I'm almost done with my day. You took a chunk out of your middle of your day. Yeah, you can, I have a website, acorkintheroad.com. That's where I post a lot of the like event ticket links and stuff like that. But otherwise on Instagram, and then the podcast is A Cork in the Road on pretty much all the platforms, not YouTube yet. I'm working on that. But yes, that's A Cork in the Road pretty much everywhere. And I was thinking, Jason, this is so fun because you're one of those people that when you say something that you want to have happen, you do it. We had this conversation about doing this at the DTC Wine Symposium. That seems like ages ago now, but you had said, hey, we'll do this. And here we are. So I'm very impressed when people say they're going to do something and actually do it. So that's awesome.
Amazing. Well, it's been such a pleasure, and thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for being curious and for leading the way on these conversations. I love tuning in. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelly. Hope to see you in real life soon.
Yep. See you soon. Bye.
Okay. Bye. Thanks everybody for joining. I'll be back. I'll be back in a few weeks.